Hi everyone. Thanks for joining our 5-year Toomey anniversary today. Really great that you dialed in. With Toomey, it's all about inclusive, sustainable mobility in our cities. My name is Marvin Stolz, and with me is Lena Fischer here, and we will be your moderators for this event. Also in the studio, live from Berlin, with us is Daniel Moser, who's heading the Transformative Urban Mobility Initiative. Before we start, I'd like to shout out a big thank you today to our Toomey partners and of course to everyone who contributed to Toomey's success in the last years. We are really happy that so many of you joined today, and that is because today, of course, will be a celebration of your work without which Toomey would not be possible.
So, let's have a look at what we've planned today. This will be a 2-hour event. Of course, we'll be looking at highlights of the past 5 years with Toomey. But most importantly, we want to discuss with you Toomey's next steps, its future and future projects alongside our 3 pillars: innovation, knowledge and financing. Also, be excited for new Toomey launches and new formats to engage with us in the future.
If you haven't noticed, this event is a live stream. So be invited to communicate with us via YouTube and of course via the Twitter chat. If you also want to tweet, please use the hashtag Toomey 5-year anniversary. And as a little surprise, we also have a conference illustrator here with us today, Esther Blodau. Great to have you here, Esther.
Great to be here.
Perfect. Esther will actually accompany all of our sessions and capture today's event with her drawings. And I'm sure we will have the chance during the event to take a quick look at what you will have produced.
Wonderful. Thank you, Marvin. So now that everything is clear for today's agenda, we are delighted to hand over to State Secretary Norbert Barthle of the Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development, the BMZ. So a big thank you for everyone who is joining us today, and over to you, Mr. Barthle.
Ladies and gentlemen, excellencies, colleagues and Toomey partners, I'm very pleased to welcome you today to the 5th anniversary of Toomey, the Transformative Urban Mobility Initiative. 5 years on from Toomey's launch, we want to look back at what has been achieved and look ahead to the challenges of the next few years. Because sustainable mobility is key to making the cities of the future both economically successful and also livable. The future is urban. The international community made that quite clear at the Habitat 3 conference in Quito in 2016. Already half of the world's population live in cities, and by 2015, that could increase to 2/3. So we will only be able to achieve the goals of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development if we get the cities on board. But how can cities combine their increasing transportation needs with the urgent need to protect the climate? The German Development Ministry, the BMZ, wanted to find answers. And that is why in 2016 it joined together in Quito with 10 other major organizations in the field of sustainable mobility to form Toomey. Together, we have achieved a lot in the last 5 years. Through Toomey, we are helping cities to develop and implement plans for sustainable mobility. We have already implemented a total of 24 pilot projects in 20 countries. More than 7,500 specialists and executive staff working in cities have been given training on sustainable mobility. We have also mobilized over 2.8 billion euros to fund sustainable transport infrastructure and mobility services. This has resulted in a saving of 1.5 tons of CO2 per year. That is a massive achievement, and it gives us the motivation to keep moving ahead. Tomi has also developed very specific solutions showing how the transport sector can help keep global warming to no more than 1.5 degrees. We will be presenting them to you in more detail later today. Of course, the COVID-19 pandemic has also hit the transport sector hard. Through Tomi, we were able to help cities in Latin America, Asia, and Africa to respond rapidly to the crisis. Through the COVID challenges, we are finding ways of moving people and goods safely in a pandemic. For example, by improving the cycling infrastructure in Cuenca in Ecuador, promoting electric rickshaws in Singra in Bangladesh, or car-free zones in Mombasa, Kenya. These success stories would not have been possible without our partners in Tomi. Your hard work and innovation have helped to make Tomi the effective and dynamic initiative we are celebrating today. On behalf of the BMZ, I would like to thank you for the good collaboration and for your commitment. But we are not here today just to congratulate ourselves on what has been achieved. We also want to look at the challenges we must face in future. Let me just outline a few. Although climate has risen up national and international agendas since Paris, greenhouse gas emissions from the transport sector continue to increase. What we need is a global transformation of the transport sector and the decarbonization or disfossilization of mobility. That means making broader use of new drive technology like green electric vehicles in a way that benefits everyone, especially in Asia and Sub-Saharan Africa, whose cities are rapidly expanding. This offers us the historic opportunity to set the transport sector on a sustainable and climate-friendly path from the very beginning. Digital technology and big data also offer enormous potential. They are changing business models in the transport sector, and they are changing the players who are involved. They offer us the chance to plan and implement sustainable mobility more quickly and effectively. So Tomi has got lots to do. And so it is also going to start several new projects. It will, for example, be looking at financing instruments for more sustainable transport investments and developing new funding models. And through the Tomi Labs, we will be working with our partners to develop innovative ways of tackling the specific mobility challenges facing different cities. All these projects will help Tomi to achieve its vision: clean urban mobility that is accessible for all. We at the BMZ are ready and willing to keep supporting Tomi and sustainable urban mobility over the coming years. We look forward to continuing working together with you in future and to our discussions today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Barthle, for your welcoming words and your ongoing support. Now we would like to come to Daniel Moser. As head of Tomi, he is of course a big part of Tomi's success story. And that's why he will now give us a brief sum up of how it all started. Our Tomi history. Daniel, over to you.
Thanks, Marvin. I'm really happy that you could join us from all around the world today on Tomi's 5th birthday. So let's just have a quick look into where it all began and what were some of the highlights over our journey of the last 5 years. Let's begin just where we started in the last 5 years, which was in 2016 in Quito. At the Habitat 3 conference, the world was discussing the future of life in cities. And we came together with the German government and thought, what could be the main contribution we bring to this conference? And the answer was transportation. So we brought together 11 partners in total and figured out what we can do together to shape transportation more sustainably. And that was the birth moment of Toomey. So now let me take you through some of the highlights which we had over the last years. There was, of course, the Toomey Global Urban Mobility Challenge, a global urban mobility challenge where we brought together more than 100 ideas from all around the world and finally gave funding to 10 of those in the first edition of the Toomey Challenge and another 10 in the second. There were also the Toomey COVID challenges where we found specific responses to COVID-19 in the transport sector. So the Toomey Global Urban Mobility Challenge really brought innovative action on the ground. Another highlight is the topic of women mobilize women. Women in transport got the global stage at the Toomey Women Mobilize Women Conference 2018 in Leipzig. And ever since, we could spawn global networks in Africa and Latin America where the topic of women in transport is being actively discussed, and together we find solutions towards more inclusive, more gender-sensitive mobility, and we will hear more about this topic just in a couple of minutes. Another key aspect is electric mobility. All of you know that electric mobility is a key driver of change and transformation in the transport sector. Also, electric mobility will be a key contributor towards shaping transportation in a climate-sensitive manner. So together with the cities of Cuenca and Lviv, we are developing holistic e-mobility plans on the ground that show practically how change can look like in this field. Another field, and this was mentioned also by the State Secretary, is that we are massively investing into expanding the global knowledge on sustainable transportation. We worked with more than 7,000 learners over the last years, and we developed a massive online learning effort where we develop together with students, leaders, and changemakers from all around the world the solutions that we need to see in cities to make transport more sustainable. Another key topic, and this was launched only a couple of months ago, is the Tumi Bus Mission. And that's where we're working towards shaping the zero-carbon public transportation of the future. We have a goal to electrify 100,000 buses until 2025. And we're working with cities around the world to make this happen. And let me just give you one last highlight, which was the Toomey Conference on Green Recovery. As cities and countries around the world are moving through and out of the pandemic, a key question remains is, how is this transformation happening? How are cities, how are countries moving out of the pandemic, and can we do so and shape the world and on that path in a more sustainable manner? So the Toomey 2021 conference, featuring a fully 3D virtual world, offered us the opportunity to discuss with thought leaders, change makers, and governments from around the world how this change can look like. Well, these are just some of the Toomey highlights, and now I want to have a brief moment together with you to look into the Toomey challenges, which brought action on the ground, and we'll have a short video for you, which we'll now share. So please stay tuned.
Cities in developing countries and emerging economies face bigger challenges than ever before. Innovation is no longer optional. It is necessary so cities can continue to prosper and improve the livelihoods of all their residents. That's why we introduced the Toomey Global Urban Mobility Challenge in 2018. Sponsored by BMZ, the initiative supports local leaders in their mobility transformation efforts. The Toomey Challenges kick-started the sustainable urban mobility transformation from Latin America to Asia by demonstrating effective change on the ground. Toomey, together with its partners, selected and supported the most innovative, scalable, human-centered, and sustainable solutions from cities all over the world. Our challenges address cross-cutting topics from gender and inclusive mobility to digitalization to make mobility accessible for everyone. This includes challenges in 23 cities with 24 pilot projects in total. 6 more COVID challenges were supported as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. The Toomey challenges were supported with up to €200,000 each, plus technical and management support by the Toomey team. In the Colombian capital, Bogotá, fear of violence and sexual harassment is restricting the mobility of women, especially during the night. The project Me Muevo Segura addressed this huge problem by mapping the complete street and cycle network of the city. By implementing interventions in mass public transport as well as the redesign of public spaces to increase the comfort and security of women and girls. In a participatory approach, this project successfully worked with different entities of government, civil society, and local communities. The data and insights collected provide an empirical basis for the city of Bogotá to target investments and programs to improve women's safety. The tactical urbanism interventions have shown their transformative potential and are now in the process of replication, both locally and internationally. In Banjarmasin, Indonesia, the streets are inaccessible to persons with disabilities, partly due to a lack of infrastructure coupled with a lack of awareness by citizens, government agencies, and families. Toomey supported the creation of an accessible city with inclusive mobility. The project is truly citizen-driven and has 2 main goals. First, to raise awareness among the general public of the daily challenges people with disabilities face in Banjarmasin and the urgent need for inclusive planning. Second, it lays the groundwork in form of a pilot project to implement inclusive mobility solutions for people with disabilities. The focus lies on mobility options for school-aged children and people with disabilities and to improve their access and ability to participate in public life. Through close cooperation with students and teachers, city officials, academics, practitioners, as well as persons with disabilities, 4 solutions have been proposed: safe and inclusive school zones for children, inclusive mobility as a public service in the form of a wheelchair-friendly 3-wheeler, inclusive neighborhoods for both women and youth groups, and lastly, a dedicated facility for waste disposal to ensure a clean and accessible neighborhood. Lack of active mobility choices and a high rate of traffic accidents result in an unsafe urban environment for school children in Ukraine. Thus, providing adequate walking and cycling infrastructure around school facilities is crucial to shift mindsets early. With the Toomey Challenge, Get to School Sustainably in Zhytomyr, Ukraine, Toomey supported the City Development Agency of Zhytomyr to shift the modal split at its public schools from motorized towards sustainable modes of transport. 4 pilot schools participated in infrastructure and capacity building projects. Capacity building projects included, for example, a mobility camp with 30 participants, including children, parents, and teachers who jointly discussed global and local trends in transport and cities, considering examples of street design and how it affects comfort and safety. Infrastructure projects included the construction of bicycle parking spaces, new walking infrastructure, including the construction of intersections and pedestrian crossings. A highlight was the redesign of space through a tactical urbanism project.
Kami terima kasih program Toomey untuk transformasi urban dan juga mobility itu dilaksanakan di Kota Banjarmasin. Ini semakin memperkuat komitmen pemerintah kota bahwa pemerintah kota tidak merasa sendiri dalam mewujudkan cita-cita bagi kota inklusi.
Toomey project can actually help us to fight against all the emission and the climate change problem.
For us, Toomey has been a window into the world, and that's amazing because we see people who are struggling with similar things, but we also see solutions. We also see promise. We see hope, and it's real. It's not just something we read on the internet.
Together with ambitious partners, we have been able to demonstrate how change can be initiated towards more human-centered mobility. In many cases, we have seen that the initial changes these pilot projects have had was that it attracted further stakeholders and was able to gain broader political and societal buy-in for more fundamental mobility changes. Toomey would like to thank all of its partners that have enabled the successful implementation of the diverse Toomey challenges. Together, we have shown that the future of mobility is already among us.
Wow, thank you so much, Daniel, for this brief Toomey history overview and all the Toomey highlights we've seen. Also the Toomey challenges. This was really a video that I think demonstrated well how many projects there are, how many Toomey challenges, and in how many diverse countries and also contexts we've been working. So thank you for that, and over to you, Marvin.
Thank you, Lena. For Toomey, innovation is only one cornerstone of our work. Key for us is also to share knowledge and also inspire new visions. And I would say, let's have a look at Toomey's approach on capacity development. We've prepared a short video. I would say, action.
The future is looking bright. The latest ITF Transport Outlook spells it out. If we reshape mobility, we will have a cleaner environment, fairer and stronger societies. The best path forward remains with avoid, shift, improve, which means avoiding unnecessary travel in the first place by compact city design, shifting to more sustainable modes of transport like walking, cycling and public transport, and improving the efficiency of our vehicles. It's a mantra for all of us working towards a greener transport sector.
But how do we get there? We have to build mixed-use neighborhoods with public transport as a backbone. We have to invest in better walking and cycling infrastructure. Also, we have to remove parking and increase its costs. In general, anything that reduces the reliance on private cars is great. We encourage online meetings to reduce commuting and flying. And we now know this is entirely possible. And finally, we have to electrify our cars, buses and trucks.
Sounds doable, right? It is. Financing all of this is of course a key challenge. But even when all that is sorted, the next problem is deciding what gets priority. And most importantly, who takes action? We at Toomey crunched the numbers. We estimated the number of skilled professionals needed to change our transport systems. And we figured out that the gap is at least 250,000 professionals in the field of urban mobility in emerging countries. Sounds daunting, doesn't it? We realized to achieve these goals, we need mayors and decision makers who showcase how cities can be transformed and reshape public policies. We need architects, urbanists, transport planners, and engineers who are trained and skilled in sustainable and integrated transport infrastructure. We need passionate people who want to make a change in their communities, and we need a lot of them.
At Toomey, we tested a variety of formats on how to improve and diversify knowledge on sustainable mobility. We want to reach as many people as possible quickly. In our annual Toomey conferences, we ramped up the discussion on all matters of sustainable mobility, including governance, e-mobility and gender, both live and our digital Toomey Island. Our Toomey summer schools are an extensive knowledge journey with lectures and field trips on the implementation of greener transport systems. With our Toomey partners, we constantly join forces to train people around the globe and develop interactive knowledge products. And of course, we have also led hackathons.
We are keen to innovate knowledge sharing and rethink traditional curriculums. With our e-learning course on sustainable transport planning, we have reached more than 7,000 learners from around the world in less than a year. And on the sidelines, we have developed Toomey into a 24/7 multimedia knowledge power hub, including TV shows, webinar series, and a podcast. We want to show everyone the promise of sustainable urban mobility and offer a doable path forward.
We have the right tools at our disposal and a dedicated community of experts to lead the charge. We at Toomey commit to dramatically scale up our knowledge sharing efforts. The global mobility transition needs to happen now. So, let's mobilize minds
Together.
Great to hear that Toomey mobilize minds for sustainable mobility. So now we are curious, dear listeners online, have you already profited from a Toomey workshop, for example?
Let us know in the chat. During our event, you can always reach out to us via YouTube and of course Twitter. As I said before, if you want to tweet about us, please use the hashtag Toomey 5-year anniversary. So now, let's have a look at our next input session.
Cool. We all know We all know good projects like that need solid financing. Our strong Toomey partners from the financial sector make that happen for us. However, especially cities sometimes face challenges with this. Securing the right funds can be tricky. Often, big funding goes to national governments, for example. Yet, the city level knows best where to invest sustainably in the urban mobility area as well. So, let's hear from the German Development Bank, the Asian Development Bank, and the Development Bank of Latin America how to tackle this challenge. In the next minutes, we'll hear from them the discussion on how to close financing gaps in cities.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Hello, wherever you are in the world. Today we are celebrating the 5th anniversary of the Transformative Urban Mobility Initiative, Toomey. And as KfW Development Bank, we are extremely proud to be part of it. So what have we seen in the last 5 years? We have seen that the major cities worldwide are still showing a dramatic growth and still require huge investments. The urban population is rapidly increasing. 70% of global greenhouse gas emissions originate in cities, and 80% of global GNP is produced in cities. So these numbers show cities are extremely important. At the same time, we notice that in mobility there's an urgent need for decarbonization. The transport sector is responsible for roughly 25% of global energy-based CO2 emissions. And what is alarming, the emissions in the transport and mobility sector are not decreasing, but growing strongly over the last 15 years. In order to achieve the Paris climate goals, the greenhouse gas emissions must be reduced by an estimated 75%. So action is urgently needed. And Toomey plays a big role in this. What have we done as KfW over the last 5 years? We have built a portfolio of more than 3 billion euro in investments in transformative urban mobility. And as you can see, there are several high-profile examples for this. We have financed a sustainable urban mobility project of light rail transport in Rio de Janeiro and Salvador da Bahia in Brazil. In Tunisia, we financed major commuter train for Tunis, which is a rapidly growing city as well. In India, there are several projects underway in the metro sector as well as in bus modernization, including electro buses. And last but not least, non-motorized transport is promoted in South Africa in an interesting project. How do we finance? As KfW and in the framework of German Financial Development Corporation, we basically follow 2 main schemes of financing. One is a financing of direct lending, where KfW lends to the government, mostly the Ministry of Finance, and Ministry of Finance on-lends the funds to the city or to the state-owned enterprise. In another model, KfW lends to a financial intermediary. Often these are public development banks, national or regional development banks, which then on-lend to the city or the state-owned enterprise. And what is special in German financial cooperation is that we can count on grants as well. There are grant funds available for project preparation and as well for technical assistance. So we can promote new technologies and help the implementation. Last but definitely not least, what are the impacts achieved through this Kfw support to the Toomey Initiative? Through the projects that are in our portfolio, we count on expected 1.5 million tons of CO2 equivalents that are not emitted per year. And we can count on 27 million passengers per day that benefit from improved services. So Toomey has an impact, and we are happy to continue with this.
Hello everybody, my name is Angie Palacios and I'm part of the transport team at CAF Development Bank of Latin America, a partner of the Transformative Urban Mobility Initiative. We're very happy to be here and to celebrate the 5 years that the initiative has been working towards sustainable urban mobility in the world. We have done a lot of great work with Toomey and with its partners, so we're very thankful and happy to be here celebrating in this event. Just briefly, I'm going to touch up on some numbers in terms of our work within the sector. We have approved more than $7 billion in the past 10 years in 74 operations in 49 cities of 10 Latin American countries, benefiting more than 86 million people. These are roughly the sectors that we mostly work on, and that pretty much sums up our actions in the region. We focus a lot on massive transport. In 11 cities, we have financed massive transport systems. The same with urban roads and urban development. Also, we work in sustainable urban mobility interventions as a whole, so very integral interventions in which we do massive transport, urban roads, but also more policy work in 32 cities in the past 10 years. And we also focus on sectorial public policy work. And in this particular example, we have invested a lot in the transport sector in Panama and Ecuador as a whole in the country, and not particularly just in urban settings. I wanted to take the little time we have to focus on a couple projects that we have worked with Toomey, particularly through the Toomey Challenge, and which we believe has a very, very important repercussions in terms of how we look at mobility interventions or how we look at transport projects. One of them is Memo Segura, or I Move Safe, that was implemented in Bogota, Colombia, where we got to test out a software and technology, pretty much digital technology, to map out the city of Bogota in terms of safety and security for women and girls. And in this case, we mapped out the entire city of Bogota, 17,000 kilometers and more than 500 kilometers of bike lanes, measuring 8 variables that, according to many studies, have some incidence on how we feel as women and girls traveling around the city. This is a work that not only provided us with a lot of data, quantitative data, but also we got to hear and talk to the women and girls that were living in these spaces and all the ordeals that they had to go through to get to where they need to get to. In this particular slide, you just see a bunch of pictures, but pretty much with that data, we got to select a couple of sites in Bogota to actually do some minor short-term interventions, and that way make visible the kind of work that you can do when you have really good data, particularly with the gender lens. And the second project that I would like to talk about is the Recycle project. in Fortaleza, Brazil. This was also a Toomey Challenge project, is an urban logistics project that is based on electric mobility. And the idea is to encourage recycling in Fortaleza, but also to promote the social inclusion of the waste collectors at the same time that we're using the bike lane infrastructure that is already in the city. This has it sort of touches on the social inclusion, the climate and the green aspect, but also the logistics and mobility aspects. So it's a very, very, very beautiful project that we're currently still executing with Toomey. There's some pictures there. It has a gender lens as well because most of the waste collectors are women, and we believe this is the future in terms of waste collecting and also in the use of cycle infrastructure for other types of activities. And I understand this is not very technical, but what I wanted to emphasize is that Toomey has allowed us at CAF to try it out and pilot really interesting work that if scale, it can produce a lot of benefits for the region and for the sector in general. And one, we're introducing new ways to collect data. In this one, we are not only using electric tricycles, which is also the future of mobility, but we are trying to do it with a lens of social inclusion as well. And these are projects that are not usually prioritized when it comes to assigning budget, just because they may seem small in reference to big development, road, massive transport system projects, but if we get this right on the ground in a pilot phase, this can be replicated citywide and across all the cities and all the countries that we work with, and that has a huge repercussion in the long term. So just to finish up, again, we're very happy to have worked with Toomey partners for the past 5 years. We hope to continue to work in this initiative and within the sectors and the areas that Toomey prioritizes. We want to continue to put in the gender lens, the green lens, and the social inclusion lens in everything we do. And we are happy that the initiative and our friends at Toomey also believe that these are the priority areas that we should be working in the future. Thank you very much, and let's celebrate.
Good morning to all. My name is Bertrand Goualou. I am a principal transport specialist at the Asian Development Bank, and it is my pleasure to be here with you. Today is the 5th anniversary of the Toomey Initiative, and on behalf of the ADB, I am glad to see the great achievements and the quality support provided to beneficiaries over the years. The overarching target of ADB Strategy 2030 is to build a prosperous, inclusive, resilient, and sustainable Asia and the Pacific. And I guess it's no surprise that when it comes to transport and urban transport, ADB is getting away from pure infrastructure finance and favors more integrated solutions with high value addition. The urban transport sector is contributing to 5 operational priorities of the ADB Strategy 2030, which are poverty reduction, gender, climate change, livable cities, and governance. And other than operational priorities, the strategy is looking at value addition through finance, knowledge, and partnerships. Lastly, promoting innovative technologies as well as delivering integrated solutions are strong guiding principles. So we are talking about knowledge, partnerships, innovations, and integrated solutions. And this is what Toomey is all about. So we highly value the partnership and the joint work with the Toomey members towards our common objectives, ultimately align with the delivery of Sustainable Development Goals and the objectives of the Paris Agreement. Urban populations in Asia and the Pacific increased from about 20% of the region's population in the 50s to 48% in 2018. By 2030, these cities are projected to have 55% of the region's population, an estimated 2.5 billion people. So we see urban transport as an enabler of development. We have been scaling up the urban transport portfolio in our landing for more than a decade now, setting ambitious targets to increase the share of urban transport projects against more conventional type of transport infrastructure support. Signature urban transport initiatives and projects are being developed jointly with our clients and our partners in most of the ADB developing member countries. To name just a few, that includes bus rapid transit systems with complete street approach, strong non-motorized transport components, and low-emission bus technologies in Pakistan. Commuter rail corridors in India, support to the construction and operation of transit lines in Thailand through PPP scheme, and development of smart transport technology in China. All urban transport projects are encouraged to adopt inclusive design standards and promote gender-effective mainstreaming. ADB, as a knowledge solution bank, is supporting its developing member countries and private sector clients in designing and adopting best practices and innovations in the sector. And it is done through partnerships and a series of knowledge options disseminated to our clients and knowledge events that we organize jointly with our partners. To conclude, let us acknowledge that we still have huge challenges ahead of us. And again, Tomi is a great contributor to these joint efforts towards improving the mobility conditions in urban areas around the world. And as we are celebrating Tomi's 5th anniversary today, I believe we are all looking forward to many more achievements in the years to come.
Thank you to our development bank partners for your insights and, of course, for your efforts, constant efforts in closing financing gaps in cities. We now heard about actions in our 3 main pillars: innovation, knowledge, and financing, and also how they build on each other.
Thank you, Marvin. So, in the field of sustainable urban mobility, there are also cross-cutting topics. An important one is to rethink gender in the urban mobility field. For example, how do women experience urban transport? Or how should we design streets so that women feel safe when they travel by night and with the bus? For that, at Toomey, we have an initiative. It's called Women Mobilize Women. So today, we have Leonie Guskowski with us in the studio.
Hi, Leonie. Really great to have you here with us today. And we all know that you're really passionate about emphasizing the needs of women in transport. So we've also heard that you've brought some colorful impressions or illustrations with you today. And please go ahead and share the Women Mobilize Women insights or highlights with our audience. Thank you.
Thank you, Marvin. Thank you for having me here today. I'm very happy to be celebrating Toomey's 5th anniversary. And in that event, I'm also very happy to be highlighting some of Women Mobilize Women's activities. And as Marvin mentioned, I'm very passionate about this topic, and I believe I'm not the only one, and many of you out there are probably very passionate about this as well. So for those of you that are not that familiar with Women Mobilize Women's activities and its history since its launch, I would like to give a brief overview of where we've come from. So Women Mobilize Women was launched in 2018, so not very long after Toomey's launch, actually. And it came from the perception and the observation that the participation of women in the transport sector was very low. At all of Toomey's activities and in general in the transport sector, we always saw a lot of men, but low participation of women. So we started with the conference, which was very unique at the time in 2018, as it focused exclusively on women's participation in the transport sector, their experiences, and also their experiences as transport users. The conference brought together more than 200 experts from around the world, and it actually proved to be only the starting point of a more longer and more complex discussion around the topic of gender. Together with an incredible supportive ecosystem of partners, we have since then been able to develop Women Mobilize Women's activities in several fields of action. Throughout all our activities, we keep in mind our one main purpose: to empower women in transport and to overcome gender blindness in the sector. Because we believe that transport is not gender neutral and women need a seat at the decision-making table. We strive towards reaching this goal through various approaches. First of all, we raise awareness among the relevant stakeholders in the transport sector and in the general public. We believe that sensitizing people for the importance of considering gender and diversity is the key towards enabling change. Therefore, we have initiated several campaigns since 2018, but we have also disseminated knowledge products and informative products, such as the 5 Principles for Women in Transport poster, which you might know. However, we believe that advocacy is not a one woman or one organization show, so we are very grateful for all of the partners that have been supporting us in this undertaking and that spread the word and raise awareness for the topic of gender. Another action we have committed ourselves to is to highlight female role models in the transport sector. In a male-dominated sector where less than 20% of workers are female, it is up to all of us to support our female colleagues. Women in the transport sector often face particular challenges in entering the sector, but also in pursuing their careers and being visible in mobility. So we are incredibly happy to have been able to highlight a diverse range of female experts since 2018 through the Remarkable Women in Transport series. And we are very much looking forward to discovering more female inspiring role models and change agents in the future. In addition to all of this, we are super happy to see that in the past few years, new peer-to-peer exchange formats and platforms have been created. And we are also inspired by the incredible mutual support that women in the transport sector are giving each other, despite their different educational backgrounds, topics, or locations or age. Our goal is to continue facilitating this exchange in order to provide women at different hierarchical levels with the new perspectives. Women Mobilize Women is intended to be an independent platform for confidence, skills, knowledge, and exchange. However, if we look at our sector as it currently is, there's still much to do to break down the gender stereotypes that we are still facing concerning women working in male-dominated areas. Last but not least, I want to highlight one more topic: knowledge, dissemination, and gathering. Since our launch in 2018, we have been able to share experiences, research, and knowledge of Women Mobilize Women, Tomi, and the broader ecosystem of partners. I would like to highlight one format that we have been using and developing, which is the Women Mobilize Women website, which acts as a knowledge hub where you can find all the relevant publications, webinars, podcasts, and more. In addition to building the website, we have supported countless webinars, such as the webinar series by the Mujeres en Movimiento from Latin America, but also other partners, including the PTV group, Women in Mobility, and more. We believe that there is already an incredible amount of knowledge out there, and we see our task in gathering this knowledge and passing it on to the relevant decision makers and planners in order for them to be able to make inclusive decisions. Looking at all these exciting activities since the initial conference in 2018, I'm truly amazed with how far the discussion has developed since then. With so many powerful women in the sector, we were able to sensitize the transport sector for the topics of gender, inclusion, equality, and equity, and we can already see that change is truly happening. We also want to take this moment to encourage all of you to further spread the word and knowledge in your networks, because we believe that we must continue to hear the voices of female experts and female change agents in the transport sector loud and clear. I would like to encourage you to now use your social media accounts to share your most memorable moment with Women Mobilize Women, or in general, as a woman in transport. Maybe you can answer one of the following questions. What has shaped your career? What challenges have you faced? Or what positive experiences have you made? Or if you identify as a man, what is your take on this topic? How do you perceive the discussion around female empowerment? And how do you understand your role as an ally? Remember to use the hashtags Toomey 5-year anniversary and the hashtag Women Mobilize when posting on social media so that we can see and retweet or repost your posts on social media. Once again, I would like to thank all our partners that have been supporting us in this undertaking and will be supporting us on the further way. And I'm very excited to be back in a few minutes to announce some of our new activities that we will be launching and implementing in the upcoming months. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Leonie. This was really an interesting summary of the activities that were ongoing with Women Mobilize Women. And you had brought to us some great illustrations. And speaking of illustrations, these illustrations were actually done by Esther, who's in the studio with us today. So let's take the moment to briefly get back to you, Esther. So we are seeing you're actually drawing on your iPad. Maybe do you want to give us a brief insights on how you do it and what has been happening so far?
Yeah, thank you very much. So I'm really excited to be here actually because I actually studied urban planning, so this is like my heart topic for me. But yeah, I love drawing. So I'm drawing on my iPad. It's kind of like drawing on paper. You can layer it up, and the biggest difference is, or not difference, but the biggest thing is really that I just listen to what you guys talk about, and I try and put that into images and words.
Okay, should we have a look? Can we see something already?
Yeah, I think it's visible on the screen here behind you. So I've
perfect.
just been listening and to the history of Toomey and the last 5 years and capturing the most important or the most resonating aspects.
This really looks promising already, and I think we're really excited to see what's coming out of it in the end of our 2-hour celebration. So thank you, Esther.
Cool, thank you.
So now we'll head over to Insa Illgen, who is now joining or has joined us in the studio. She's the head of the sector project Sustainable Mobility at GIZ, which also heads the Toomey Secretary. So over to you, Insa.
Thank you, guys. Yes, hello also from my end. I'm very, very happy to be here today. I'm actually, like, for me, it's really like coming home to this day because I was part of the first conceptualizers of Toomey in 2016. And it was a very creative and exciting time to actually build such an initiative in urban mobility within our network. And to see what has come out of it and to be part of this today is really special for me. And this is a very special day for us. So we really want to celebrate this and not only look back on all the great successes and accomplishments that we have celebrated so far, but we also want to take the time to look into the future. So what's actually like the next step for Toomey and where do we want to head with this great initiative? So who better to ask than our Toomey partners? The Toomey partners are actually at the heart of this initiative, and this is really important for us to really have the strategic discussion with them and have their insights into what they think is a good direction for the Toomey to take. So this is what we want to do today, and we would, like, due to the COVID situation, love to have this discussion with all of our partners in one room. But since this is not possible, we're still excited because we made it that one of our dear Toomey partners is with us today, and that's Jeromin from BMZ. He's with us today in the studio in Berlin. And the discussion will be facilitated by Daniel Moser. I think all of you have seen him today quite a bit, so I don't have to introduce him again. So yeah, have fun with the discussion with our partners and hope to see you all soon again.
Thanks a lot, Insa, and we're very, very happy to now start the strategic outlook discussion with our Toomey partners. And we're super happy to have one of our Toomey partners, the BMZ, here with us live in the studio. And just let's have a quick look also at our guests online and then kick it off with a short discussion. So can we show the online screen now with the partners online? All right. So let's kick it off. Before we do a short round of welcomes, let's kick it off with Benjamin, who is here with us today. So Benjamin, it's great that you could join us. And what we've seen in the last couple of months, the last couple of years, that the BMZ has realigned its strategic priorities. The BMZ is looking at the upcoming years and what kind of priorities will be in the focus. So maybe if you could give us a couple of words around the priorities of the BMZ and where you think that especially the urban mobility field can fit into this.
Thanks, Danny, and thank you for setting this meeting up. I'm very much looking forward to our discussion with the Toomey partners. Yes, the BMZ just published its next 5-year strategy, which includes the strategy on urban development, which the mobility part is part of. And I think the main message and the good message is that Toomey is a central part and a fundamental part to it. So we think that 2025 we will still have Toomey. Now it's 5 years Toomey, and 2025 it will be almost 10 years, which I think is a great span of life for an initiative. So we're looking very much forward to the next 5 years. And while this is said to be continuity from our side, and we wish to continue our support to Toomey, there's of course some new aspects we would like to focus more on. And the first thing is that we see that we need to approach urban development in a more holistic approach. That means we want to have a look at urban mobility together with urban development and planning, with a circular economy, energy supply, especially renewable energy, of course, and so on. So a holistic approach to urban development will be important and even more important in the next 5 years to us. A second thing that is central is that we see that cities are growing especially quickly in sub-Saharan Africa and in Southeast Asia. That's where we have a great opportunity where our partners requested to strengthen our commitment and our engagement on urban mobility. And that's hopefully in 5 years we will say we have a bigger and stronger portfolio and a strong partner commitment in sub-Saharan Africa and Southeast Asia. And one aspect that has already been mentioned in the contributions we have heard earlier today is that we still see a huge financing gap. And we're now in a very crucial moment. We have the COVID-19 pandemic and the economic repercussions of it. And what we would like to strengthen and to focus on is the recover forward approach, to shift the billions and trillions that are made available now through economic stimulus packages to sustainable investments. Until now we see that it's not happening enough. So I think OECD says it's only 17% of the investments which are made into sustainable investments. We want to help increase that amount, and for that we need the Toomey when it comes to mobility, the development banks such as ADB, CAF, KfW, and of course the multilateral development banks too. So that's why we intend to further work with the World Bank, for example, to whom we have great contacts and with whom we have great cooperation. And that will be another priority for the next 5 years. And last but not least, we have the Toomey, which is a great partnership. And as we know from soccer, 11 partners make up for a great team. So I think and I hope that in 5 years we will still have that team and a strong team. And now, without further ado, maybe we can hear something from our Toomey partners worldwide.
Thank you, Benjamin. And really, there's, if you heard what he said, and this is the position of the German government, we have a lot on our table over the next 5 years, over the next 10 years. It's less than 100 months till 2030. And we really do have the team here. We have invited our partners, and they're live online and on the screen with us from around the world. So we are very, very happy to have all the Toomey partners here with us who could make it today. And let's kick off a little discussion right now with the Toomey partners. And let's start with the KfW, the German Development Bank. Rainer Koblo joined us from the German Development Bank. And Rainer, I hope you can hear me. The key question I want to ask you as a development bank is, what does Tomi stand for if you look at the pillars which were just presented, innovation, knowledge and finance? Could you give a little bit of a perspective what you think Tomi stands for?
Innovation, knowledge, and finance. I saw at the beginning of the discussions there was an online survey where innovations get, interestingly enough, the highest points with some 80%. And I think that's a very interesting point, because what we saw, especially in the mobility sector, is that innovation is becoming very, very important, and the whole sector is amazingly innovative. So this goes from one end, where you have the big players like the Googles, the Apple, the Amazon, where you have activities on developing autonomous driving. You have new approaches in urban traffic management, where we see artificial intelligence approaches. We even see that new things like quantum computer approaches are very suitable for management of urban cities. So they're very interesting things. And on the other end, we see decentralized approaches, which I think are very much fitting for more developing countries, where we see a lot of mobile apps. I think there is no city in the developing world where you can go where you cannot call your tuk-tuk or your Uber taxi by a mobile app. So this is very amazing, because these are developments from startups, from young people, decentralized. And now you see also a lot of things like the Internet of Things approaches, long-range networks with sensor networks, which are also supporting traffic management and other traffic applications. So these innovations, I think, are really driving the sector, and this is really amazing and very, very exciting. And of course, to implement this and bring this to our partners in the developing countries, you need knowledge, you need know-how. First of all, that you can explain to partners what we have now, what is most appropriate in their countries, and we, Tomi, should help them to bring things which are suitable for them, which are adapted to their surrounding. And we bring it by training, by capacity building, where our friends from GSZ are doing a lot of things. We also bring them experts, or we bring the people from developing countries to Europe, to America, to Asian countries, to see where things are applied. And to implement this, of course, the cities need money, they need financing. And this is our major role as a developing bank, to look for possibilities for financing, which is not always very easy, because cities very often have no access to the international financing market. And we try to find solutions to give cities access to international financing. So I think these are the three major fields where Tomi supports our partners. Thank you very much.
We see a transformation on many fronts, actually. We do not only see the transformation happening from the side of the private sector, with autonomy, e-mobility, and many other aspects are on the field of digitalization coming into the transport sector, but also the great challenges as well as opportunities which we are seeing on the side of governments. Let's now look at governments, and we do have ICLE here on our discussion. Tomi Tran from ICLE is joining us, and ICLE is a network of cities from around the world. And Tomi, I want to ask you a question which goes back a little bit in the history of this initiative. So looking back, and you have been with us for a lot of years already now as a partner, what do you think are the most memorable, the most important events with Tomi in the past 5 years? And what do you think in particular was very interesting or instrumental for you when you look back in terms of shaping also the way we are working in the transportation sector and trying to make mobility more sustainable. Tomi, over to you.
Thank you, Daniel, and congratulations to me and all of us for this big milestone that is the 5 years. It's a very tough question what you have asked, Daniel, because there are so many different activities and events that have happened in the past 5 years, and I think that earlier today we have heard most of them already. But perhaps the first one that comes to mind is really the launch of the Toomey Initiative at Habitat 3. So it's a very significant also moment in time after the Paris Agreement, 1 year after the Paris Agreement, and also at the conference for urban development in Quito. And then I would say, as a woman in transport, then I think that Toomey has been has been a front runner with the Mobilize Women in 2018, and has also triggered a lot of different activities, especially in countries like Latin America and Africa, and where this gender issue is so much more prominent. And then in the same year, there was also the launch of the Toomey Global Challenges, which has really propelled some of these little initiatives, and these global challenges have addressed a gap in the cities, as we have heard earlier today from Kfw, in which the smaller projects are often harder to finance, and at the same time has also fostered innovative approaches that are locally born, and at the same time improving capacities at the local level, which is also perhaps one of these big challenges in making sure that the cities and national governments can access the funding and international donors resources. And last but not least, it's also the Toomey has been instrumental for the action towards climate-friendly transport, the ACT initiative, which is one of the largest coalition of 100 organizations. Which promotes and accelerates the decarbonization of transport. And within this ACT initiative, the Tumi Bus Mission will be an instrumental and huge contributor. Thanks.
Thank you, Tomi, from ICLEI. And ICLEI really has and is in touch with governments and cities from around the world. So it's great to hear that perspective from you, that change on the ground really matters, and how we can work together in a way that we can shape these transitions towards Paris Climate Agreement compatible transport sector in the next years. And really we do have an expert on this field here with us, and that's Marusha Kadama from SLOCAT. SLOCAT, a think tank which specifically deals with the challenges of shaping a climate-compatible transportation sector. And Marusha is live with us here today. And Marusha, as an expert in the field and being part of the negotiations at the UNFCCC conferences, I think I have something which I wanted to ask you, which is what do you see are the biggest challenges towards implementing sustainable mobility right now? We can look at funding and financing, but there's also the challenge, obviously, of political support and backing up decision-making. Then there is the key question of human capacity. We discussed this earlier today already, with a lack of more than 250,000 decision makers in cities which are not trained right now and which need to be trained to shape transport more sustainably. But there's obviously also, and I know that's also a topic very dear to your heart, a lack of cross-sectoral thinking. We heard from BMZ also the need to think more holistically about transportation. So please, Marusha, could you enlighten us? And thanks again also, I'm very, very happy to have you here today. Over to you, Marusha.
Thanks so very much, Daniel. Good morning to you, to Benjamin, and to all our colleagues from the different partners of Toomey. First and above, happy 5-year anniversary to Toomey and to all of us. It's a very broad question, isn't it, Daniel? And indeed, I think you've already hinted at many of the challenges that prevail there. Certainly, a siloed and not systemic approach to transport and mobility decision making and planning remains an issue. Not only do we know that human capacity it's still presenting huge gaps, and you just referenced to those impressive figures that you've mapped out already a couple of years ago, but we also know that what we need is to synergize the curricula and the practice of different types of planners, transport planners, but mixed with urban spatial planners and also energy planners, because we know that electric mobility is actually an opportunity, but also a challenge in terms of energy demand and transport demand in many cities. We also know that cooperation across ministries is still essential, and we know that sometimes transport ministries or transport departments in cities are not necessarily connected to the different other sectorial ministries or departments. And then there is another aspect, if you want, that goes beyond institutional configurations, but that it's more the practice and the thinking, is how to better connect our community of thinkers and change makers in this movement of sustainable low carbon transport with the movement in cities around health or around renewables and the different communities that are around those movements. So indeed, you were also talking about political backing, political support. I think that there is a lot to be done there, but a bit of hope as well. For good or for bad, the pandemic, I think, has put a lot of spotlight on how much we depend on transport of passengers and goods, and how much we need to increase the resilience of these systems. And I think that that is coming as well with an increased and heightened attention to transport matters by different decision makers and in the political arena. So I would underscore very much financing and funding as a very prevalent gap. And I've already listened carefully to the reflections that Benjamin was sharing with us. I just wanted to share with you perhaps a few facts and figures that I think speak for themselves, and are extracted from the latest edition of the Slow-Cut Transport and Climate Change Global Status Report that we could release only a few months ago last summer. And it's interesting to note that if we take some global figures, we can say that in 2019, an estimated $200 billion was invested in energy efficiency for buildings, industry, and transport. But the transport sector received only a 26% of these. And we can also know that overall investment in transport has fallen dramatically since 2014. If we wanted to estimate the gaps we've got in infrastructure needs for transport, we can say that there remains an estimate annual financing gap of around $440 billion for transport infrastructure to meet the Sustainable Development Goals by their horizon of 2030. If we look at pricing mechanisms and subsidies, which we know are absolutely essential in our decarbonization of our sector, we can tell you that in 2020, around 60% of global greenhouse gas emissions were covered by some sort of carbon pricing mechanism. Great news, by the way, because this is up from 5% in 2020. However, we also know that transport remains largely marginalized in discussions on carbon pricing and emission trading schemes, with very few exceptions. And if we now take the COVID pandemic recovery investments that were also mentioned previously, we know that only a fraction of those monies that are being mobilized could actually put the whole world in a decarbonization path. When we look at the recovery packages, only a third of transport investments are associated with clean transport. And these are largely overweight by investments in fossil fuel focused initiatives. When we look particularly at G20 countries, we can see that they have committed more than half of their total stimulus packages to transport projects, but actually only 1/3 of those investments could be considered as green transport improvements. Again, there is hope in the sense that the monies are being distributed. We are witnessing this moment of unprecedented public investment, and the opportunity, therefore, is there. And also cities are leading the way. And we are seeing how in September 2020, the mayors of 12 major cities, 12 global cities across the world, committed, for instance, to divesting funding from fossil fuel companies and shifting to a green recovery to actually make this a recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic a just and equitable one. And certainly we know that in a sector like us, which is so heavily dependent on fossil fuels right now, this divestment is something that we need to look into very seriously. So a lot of different threads here, Daniel. I just wanted to illustrate a bit with facts and figures to the extent to which funding and financing is a central conversation. And if we don't really take it seriously, probably we're not going to have the real change-making decisions that we need to see in the next few years, and that will mark the possibility for our sector to decarbonize and become sustainable over the next decade. Thanks very much.
Thanks very much, Marusha. And that's great to hear how you captured this great big picture and then circled back to funding and financing as a key message which we have to deliver. And we will have to deliver this message at COP26 and are preparing something on this regard. So please stay tuned also on this. But also let me bring this question around the key priorities which are out there back to Benjamin and circled back with the German government. So Benjamin, what do you think are the regions in the world where you think innovative, sustainable mobility solutions need to be brought onto the ground? And where do you see, especially regarding Tomi, strong elements in terms of where we can act as a driving force? Can you elaborate a little bit on this strategic question, really?
Well, I think the brief answer is globally everywhere. I mean, this is a discussion we are even having in Germany right now, and we just had elections, so this was one of the central part of the discussions around the elections. How do we set our own mobility up for the next years? And when having a look at developing and emerging countries, what I think we are seeing and we will see in the next years is that we have a decentralization of solutions. Rainer Koblo mentioned the private sector, Tomi Transform Icle mentioned the local level. We see that new technological, digital business solutions are emerging everywhere. And we also see that local governments are innovating a lot. That's true for Bogota, Colombia, it's true for Singra, Bangladesh. The Tomi challenges were part of some of those innovations. And I think this will continue to be part of the revolution we need for urban mobility. So there's not one region leading the way. I think local governments, national governments, the financing sector, the private sector, they all have their role to play. This being said, of course, we have some partners in development cooperation which are strongly pushing forward. There are lots of partners whom we are strengthening our portfolio and our cooperation. I just would like to mention one, which is India, with whom we have the Indo-German Green Urban Mobility Partnership, being set up almost 2 years ago with more than 1 billion euros over the next 5 years. So this is one of the governments and one of the partners with whom we definitely will continue to work very strongly on urban mobility. But that's just one example. We have, as I said earlier, we would like to strengthen our cooperation in Sub-Saharan Africa and Southeast Asia, and yeah.
Fantastic. Again, you just also re-emphasizing how much is on our table really to transform this sector in the next decade. Or in the next 5 years, really. So thank you, Benjamin, also for bringing this into perspective again. We now have live with us Simon Roberts from the C40 headquarters in London, who joined us today. C40, you know them for also their very high-level work around the world on sustainable transformation of cities and the transport sector. And Simon, I'm very, very happy to have you with us today. And if you look at transportation, and you are a transportation expert, what do you think are the topics which should receive the highest attention when you look at transportation? So you see extreme weather events becoming ever more frequent over the last years. that brings climate adaptation into perspective for the transport community. We also do have an urban air quality crisis, you can say, though, around the world, with millions of people dying prematurely from bad air. Then there are the questions of what you measure is what you act on, looking at emission calculations and monitoring. And we do also see, obviously, a big shift towards propulsion technologies, with battery electric vehicles taking over and ending the internal combustion engine fast. So, Simon, if you could give a little bit of perspective into these key topics that are floating around right now in the transport sector, in the transport community, what's your perspective? Which one should receive the highest attention? Where do you see we don't look at enough right now? Would be really interested in hearing your opinion around that, and also what this can possibly mean to recalibrate Toomey's priorities over the next years. Over to you, Simon.
Yes, thank you very much for that, Daniel, and thanks for inviting me to this event. So yeah, you've raised four very important topics, and I think I often joke within the transport community, the answer is always a bit of everything, but I'm going to actually pick one for once, and I think adaptation is probably going to become the most important topic that should receive the highest attention. And I think, well, I suppose my main reason for thinking that is probably the topic that receives the least attention right now. It's perhaps less well understood even amongst like expert practitioners. Like, what do we do to make a resilient transport network that's adaptable to the changing climate? And I think there's maybe some perception amongst people who are like funding organisations such as ourselves and the Toomey project, that if you're focusing on adaptation, that you're kind of giving up on mitigation. And I think that's not at all the case. You know, we still need to focus a lot on mitigation. But even if we hit the 1.5 degrees in the Paris Agreement, that still brings significant changes to the climate that the transport network is going to have to cope with. And there's increasing evidence that climate change it's becoming a barrier to the solutions that are needed for mitigation. So it's becoming a barrier to greater use of public transport, walking and cycling. If you're in extreme weather, if you're like exposed to the extreme heat, it's a lot less attractive to be waiting for a bus in exposed extreme heat than jumping into a air-conditioned car. So you kind of creating a bigger problem, ironically. And I think there's also a fairly high risk of maladaptation if we don't consider the climate impacts on transport properly. So for mitigation, you need a massive investment in more public transport, more infrastructure for walking and cycling. But we only want to build these things once. We don't want to be making this massive investment if it's not resilient, if it's not able to adapt to the changing climate, and it's broken by extreme weather events. We only want to make this investment once. So yeah, in conclusion, I think all the topics you've raised are vitally important, but I think because it has perhaps historically received the least attention, I think now that climate adaptation is the one which should receive the highest attention.
Fantastic, Simon. Thank you very much for that very deep answer, really, on these different challenges. And you're right, obviously we need to look at all of these with certain detail. So thank you very much for going into detail also in your answer. Now, Roger van den Berg from WRI is with us here. And Roger, we've sat together just a little bit over a week ago and talked about the necessary transformations, the shifts that need to happen in cities, in the transport sectors. And I've a little bit of a question for you around the modal question. You know that a lot of times we're looking at the different transport modes and what needs to happen in each of these modes, say cycling, say walking, say public transportation, rail, metro, micromobility, you name it. So what do you think from that holistic perspective, from that urban perspective, do you think certain transport modes should receive higher attention towards making cities more sustainable, making transport more sustainable? Do you think there is somehow a silver bullet transport mode which can solve many of the challenges which we are seeing right now in the transport sector? So that would really be interesting from my side to hear from you what you think about that, or if you think in the opposite way, that you think we should do all, but then again, what should be our approach when we ask to do everything, what are we starting with? So over to you, Roger. I'm very happy to have you here and looking forward to your answer on this specific and very contested question.
Thanks, Daniel. You talk about the silver bullet, and I see all the colleagues laughing in the screen. So let me not go that way. First of all, I want to really congratulate on this 5th year anniversary and WRI and the Ross Center for Sustainable Cities. We're a proud partner. So congratulate to all the partners. I think a lot has been said already, and you know, in the coming 10 years, decarbonization, the transport sector is absolutely key. But COVID really kind of revealed to us that the cities, how we plan and how we use the cities is actually in pretty dire straits. So we did 6 years of studies on the accessibility of services in cities, as that's kind of the core of the World Resources Report that we're launching next week. And you see, you know, access to services is absolutely key for development. And public transport plays a kind of absolute key role in there. And if we look at the moment at how cities, how public transport systems in cities are in really super dire straits, the first priority is really supporting cities to prioritize public transport and help them to find kind of financial mechanisms to keep them running and to extend them. And this is an equity question. So this is not only a decarbonization question, it's an equity question. You know, many sprawling cities, we mentioned already the fast-growing cities in sub-Saharan Africa and Southeast Asia. Many communities depend on public transport systems purely 100% to get access to their jobs or to get access to healthcare facilities. So prioritizing public transport while decarbonizing it is absolute key to kind of guarantee equity within the city context. And the other real priority is active mobility. We've also seen but we've also seen that COVID really kind of pushed ourselves in the immediate context of where we live and how we use the city and how we can walk and bike in order to kind of move around the city, move around our neighborhood. We've seen a lot of cities kind of actually implementing bike lanes, more kind of green infrastructure possibilities in terms of interventions in public spaces. So, and I think that seamless connection between that prioritizing public transport as a backbone for the city and have that kind of connection, that interconnectivity between, you know, biking, walkability and that public transport system is really a priority. And I just reiterate this kind of access to services and the equity question is really at the forefront of how we should plan and manage our cities. So I think that's kind of pretty much the core. It's not a silver bullet, but it's an absolute priority. And I think this is, we know that this is actually within reach of lower and middle income countries. We can do that. We know how to do it. We can do it with the current technology. So We are very excited about that and about supporting city leaders in taking the right decisions and to create that, that understanding of interdependencies between the different modes of transport and, the analytics that are needed in order to understand how you kind of stitch services and access and public transport together. I want to say one more thing on finance, because Rainer Kolo mentioned this and others too, by the way, how important it is. And we are finalizing a paper on financing active mobility, which we will release. We do that together with the World Bank. We will release that at the 28th of October. And I want to point this specifically out because it's so important, because when you talk to a city leader or when you talk to planners, everybody says active mobility, definitely very important, walking, biking, very good, The question is, how do you get it in place? And there's just the same way as there's a kind of financing reality to public transport, to electrifying buses, and there's also a financing reality to kind of implementing active mobility. And I think that's the next step where we can really support cities in implementation of that. Not only good intentions, but just pragmatic, what can we do and how we pay for it. Thank you. Not a silver bullet. Huh?
Thank you, Roger, and it's great that you mentioned the dire straits of the public transport sector around the world, and we all know that you're also an avid jazz musician, so it's great you mentioning that, but also roping it in with the question of financing active mobility and stitching the different transport modes together, because we know that only if we stitch it all together, it can really work. So here's to our last partner live with us today, which is Bertrand Golau from the Asian Development Bank, and we're very, very happy to have you live with us here today. And I want to ask you a question, really an outlook question. When you look at the key priorities which we could take as initiative of 11 partners, which thematic priority do you think we should take? Should we look at e-mobility? Should we look at data? Should we look at inclusion, social cohesion, and gender as a key field of issue field? Or do you think public-private cooperation as a key topic? And just hearing from our control room that the connection has dropped to Manila, so it seems that we don't have Bertrand from the Asian Development on the line at this moment, but maybe let me give that question to you, Benjamin. If you could have one shot at the future, where would you look at, and if you can also bring this together with what we heard right now from all the Toomey partners, do you think there is some sort of summary, some sort of final conclusion which you can put under this right now in terms of where we are going into the future? I would be really interested what your key takeaway is from today's discussion.
Well, it would be hard to sum up everything that we heard, because it's been a very rich discussion and we have heard so many inputs. And as Roger just said, there's no silver bullet. I think public transport is central. What we are focusing very much on, not exclusively, but which is one among several other aspects, is fair access and transition to decarbonized transport modes. That is e-mobility, battery electric e-mobility, but not exclusively. We have also trolley buses, tram, light rail, etc., which are all forms of electric mobility, e-bikes, and so on. And this is, of course, just the drivetrain of the transport mode. But I think the challenge here is to have a discussion and a transition to decarbonized transport modes, which includes the developing world. Because right now at COP26 we have a very strong discussion on zero-emission vehicles, and this is of course a huge financial effort. We're already seeing that macroeconomically it's being sustainable within 5 to 10 years, but it's a huge investment. It brings up other questions such as the reuse of the older vehicles. So there are a lot of challenges that are directly linked to the reality in our partner countries. And I think we need to start now preparing the path so that decarbonized transport modes are accessible and are being prepared in a sustainable manner. Another topic is the origin of the resources for that transition in the developing world, so that we don't have a decarbonized electric mobility in the north and a delayed or no electric mobility in the south. That would be a lost opportunity. So I think we need to set the path now. Mm-hmm. But as I said, it's just one of, among other aspects. Of course, mass transport is crucial, city planning is crucial, and the holistic view on cities will be essential, especially where cities grow fast in the next years.
Perfect. That's a perfect summary and also an outlook on the tactical, which we are seeing in the next couple of weeks, which is COP26 happening in Glasgow. So where e-mobility and the exit of out of the internal combustion engine, which is happening fast, will take another big step. So let me thank again all Toomey partners which have been here today, which were live with us, and really thank you a lot for joining us on the 5th anniversary of Toomey. I'm very, very happy to have talked with you, to discuss with you and go through these key challenges. Thank you very much again. Now let me take this and give it to Marvin, our moderator, who's taking over the discussion, taking over the anniversary right now for the next agenda items. Thank you also for doing this, and thanks again for joining us on this strategic outlook together with the Toomey partners.
Thank you very much, Daniel, Benjamin, and of course to the partners again, also from my side. I think this was really a rich discussion. We've heard it. It seems to be the case that everyone's really excited to know how we look into the future and how Toomey's work will continue in the future, in the upcoming years. What we definitely can promise is that there are many exciting new projects and initiatives are coming up or waiting for you. And speaking of projects, exciting projects, we can directly turn to the Toomey Bus Mission, which is actually led by Jens Giersdorf, who is in the studio with me or with us today. And hi Jens, of course, first of all.
Good morning, Marvin.
Good morning. Great to have you here. And I've heard that you will present some insights, what you're planning with the Toomey Bus Mission, and I'm really excited to hear your take.
Yeah, thank you, Marvin. We got here yesterday from the train station to the hotel by an electric bus, and we were discussing about the silent and comfortable bus ride. And Benjamin just mentioned that this is an experience that should not be exclusively for the global north, but of course also made accessible for the global south. And that's what Toomey Bus Mission is really about. We already mentioned that we have here a dream team, all Toomey partners, which are here together in the Toomey Bus Mission, experts on electric buses, with several institutions, C40 cities, eClay, World Resource Institute, UITP, ITDP, GIZ, and ICCT, supported by the German Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development. And the Toomey Bus Mission brings together these experts on electric mobility and ambitious cities around the globe. We have 20 deep dive cities around the globe: Mexico City, Guadalajara, Monterrey in Mexico, Bogotá, Barranquilla y Valledupar in Colombia, Sao Paulo, Curitiba, Rio de Janeiro, Campinas and Salvador in Brazil, Kampala, Nairobi and Durban in Africa, and Delhi, Chennai, Mumbai, Bangalore, Ahmedabad in India, and Hanoi and Jakarta in Southeast Asia. And most of these cities already formalized their partnership with the Toomey Bus Mission. So some of these cities already have ambitious goals when it comes to the deployment of electric buses, such as Bogotá, which has a quite ambitious target for the near future, but also Jakarta and Sao Paulo have plans about adopting electric buses. And the idea is to support these cities within the Toomey Bus Mission and also to include other cities that are willing to follow their example. And for this, I would like to give you a chance to hear the statement from the mayor of the city of Salvador in Brazil, saying a few words about Toomey Bus Mission.
Queríamos agradecer a Missão Tumi por ter selecionado Salvador dentre as 5 cidades do Brasil e 20 do mundo para dar esse apoio e suporte e orientação para que a gente possa avançar no caminho da eletromobilidade. Nós temos que tomar a decisão nos próximos dias em relação ao sistema BRT, aquisição de ônibus, e esse workshop hoje que a Tumi está nos ajudando a organizar vai permitir que a gente tome a melhor decisão. Nosso desejo é trazer ônibus elétricos, ônibus que possam contribuir para a redução da emissão dos gases do efeito estufa e que a gente possa possibilitar ao passageiro, ao cidadão soteropolitano, o transporte mais seguro, mais eficiente e com menor ruído. Essa tem sido a prática em grandes cidades e Salvador quer se inserir nesse contexto e é muito importante o apoio da Tumi para que isso possa ocorrer.
Yeah, these are the words of the mayor of the city of Salvador from Brazil, where the Toomey Bus Mission has been kicked off successfully in the past month. But other cities are also joining the Toomey Bus Mission and are kicking off the activities in their cities, setting targets for the deployment of electric buses and how to reach this goal in the near future. So we plan to reach out not only to these deep dive cities, but to much more cities. The plan is to reach out to 100 cities until the end of 2020 and to more than 500 Menti cities until the end of 2025. And for this, we are planning to set up a global knowledge hub here at Toomey, connecting different Menti city networks around the globe in Colombia and Mexico, Brazil, Africa, Southeast Asia, and India. We're building up the structure, providing knowledge products, building up these capacities, and also supporting these cities with hands-on help for specific problems they need to solve on their track for the deployment of electric buses. And we will keep track of the progress. We are setting up the Toomey eBus tracker, which is the tracker for the electric bus deployment around the globe. And we also ask you to send us data and to provide input for this so we can keep track of this success story, hopefully in the near future. So we would also like to ask you to join us at the ACT side event at the United Nations Sustainable Transport Conference this Friday, together with Slowcat and Toomey. We will hear more about the ACT initiative, of which Toomey eBus Mission is part of, this Friday, online webinar as a side event of this important United Nations Sustainable Transport Conference. And we will also have a webinar at the end of this month in which some cities such as Mexico City and Curitiba from Brazil will give some insights into e-bus planning as part of Toomey eBus Mission. So that's an invitation for all of you to learn more about the activities of the Toomey eBus Mission. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Jens. Great overview, and it seems that this project really aims for the stars when it comes to urban e-mobility, so great initiative. And now I would just directly come and switch over to Leonie again, who you already know. And this time she will share with us some news and also future plans of our Women Mobilize Women initiative.
Thank you, Marvin. I warned you before, I will be back with some news from Women Mobilize Women, and I'm excited to announce the new activities that we're launching today and will be implementing in the next months. I want to remind you again of Women Mobilize Women's purpose that I mentioned before, to empower women in transport and to overcome gender blindness in the sector. And to strive for this objective, I'm thrilled to announce some new activities, how we're going to strive towards this goal in the next months. First of all, I would like to talk about the mentoring program, the Global Urban Leaders Program that we launched just last week on 4th of October. And that is being implemented together with the Mujeres en Movimiento network from Latin America. The program seeks to empower women working in the transport sector through providing knowledge, skills, and peer-to-peer mentoring among women in the sector. And we had a lot of applications, and out of 150 applications in total, we carefully selected about 60, or exactly 60, outstanding women that will participate in the program in the next months. These participants will form the first cohort of the Global Urban Leaders Program. And we are thrilled to see so many women of different ages, locations, and different areas of the transport sector coming together to support each other. All these women will be able to increase their knowledge, skills, and will be also supported in working towards their personal and career-oriented goals in the transport sector. Just yesterday, we had the first networking session where we all got to meet each other and got to talk about our goals for the upcoming months. With the program, we want to empower women in the transport sector through giving the opportunity to mutually support each other, but also to learn about gender and mobility, leadership skills, and project management. We are super excited to be able to provide this opportunity to the cohort, and we will look forward to the upcoming months, and we will keep you posted on social media, and you will hear all about the news from the program. And an important part is, of course, increasing visibility, but it's not only about increasing visibility of the women working in the transport sector, but it's also about increasing visibility of women as transport users. And that means we have seen a large challenge in implementing gender-sensitive mobility solutions. At the same time, the need for evidence-based decision-making is growing. And this means that we will need more and better data that is gender-sensitive to be able to make gender-inclusive transport decisions. At our workshop at Toomey 2021, earlier this year in May, we discussed a few key principles in gender-sensitive data collection that we will be implementing in the next months. But I would like to briefly introduce you to these principles that stand above all our work. The first step would be to sensitize planners and decision makers for the importance and the relevance of gender-sensitive data and analysis. The second step, which we are going to do now, is to actually go into the field and collect the data and collect gender disaggregated data through harmonized methodologies and with trained staff. Thirdly, it's important to make sure that we provide training and capacity building so that the relevant people in the transport ministries and other relevant actors have the capacities to collect the data, to work with the data, and to translate data into gender-sensitive projects and planning approaches. Throughout the entire process, we also need to ensure that we have women at the table and that the decision-making table is diverse so that we can include all perspectives. Another point is that we want to provide more open access data so that it can be actually used in the cities and is not collected and then kept secret. And last but not least, all these principles must be mainstreamed into gender-responsive design. This means that indicators need to be developed that consider gender sensitivity, but also monitoring and evaluation standards are more inclusive. Now, with all these important insights and guiding principles that we have developed together with you, we will be taking gender data collection to another level. In the upcoming months, we will be implementing gender-sensitive data collection, mobility data collection in a few selected African cities. This will include the development of methodologies, but even more the testing of approaches and the adaptation to the specific context. Our goal is to develop comprehensive approaches that can be implemented everywhere. We want to ensure that gender-sensitive data collection is no longer an abstract process that should be implemented, but instead it becomes a comprehensive task that will be undertaken in cities all around the world. Furthermore, the insights from the data collection processes will of course feed into different activities and will be shared with partners so that we can spread the word, spread the knowledge, and make sure that it becomes a standard all around the world. We welcome you all to follow us in this open process. We are excited to be able to share news and first results soon, and we are also looking forward to your impulses on this topic. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Leonie, for bringing this exciting new projects, the Global Urban Leadership Program on the one hand, but then also the gender data on the other hand, to our listeners again. And I can only repeat the plea to get active and get in touch with us for this upcoming projects. Yeah, I mean, in the end, it's that what we need, reliable data as well, to make sustainable transport systems possible and accessible for all, regardless of gender.
And now over to some other exciting news, the launches, or in one special case, the relaunch of new Toomey projects. Daniel again is here with us and we'll get into the specifics now. Over to you, Daniel.
Thanks, Marvin. So we've seen so much today already, and really what would a birthday party be without presents? So we brought something which we want to show you today. So there are two things really which I'd like to briefly talk about together with you. The first is Toomey Labs. And we've heard about the Toomey challenges. Now the question is, how can we bring change in cities to the next level? And we are talking with cities around the world. We're doing that. We're working with more than 7,500 urban leaders towards bringing more knowledge towards the transformation of transport in more sustainable manners. But now we want to make change on the ground on another level, and that's Toomey Labs. Toomey Labs is a one-year laboratory which we bring on the ground in specific cities around the world, where we will discuss together with the cities and international experts from around the world how can we enact that change that we would like to see together with the city. And that's Toomey Labs, and stay tuned. We will announce very, very soon where the first Toomey Lab will take place and where we will work with the city for a year to implement sustainable mobility on the ground to kickstart that transformation in a specific city on a specific challenge. The second thing I want to briefly talk about is Toomey Friends. So what's Toomey Friends? Toomey Friends is really the idea that we need the private sector to work with us to transform urban mobility together with the investment, with the finance, and with the know-how of the private sector. And we have a network of friends, GPSM, which we are now bringing towards Toomey to bring this network onto the next level, work with more than 200 companies from Germany, from around the world, together, where we will figure out solutions where the private sector works together with the public sector and transforms urban mobility on the ground for a more climate sensitive, more just and a more sustainable transport sector. So stay tuned for Toomey Friends, which we will launch very, very soon, and you will receive an email in your inbox about this. So thank you very much again for these two new exciting announcements which we can do today, and which where we are very, very happy to shape the work around Toomey in the next years, also around these two topics.
Wonderful, thank you, Daniel. And I think all the Toomey team is really excited to get on with this project and to get on with the Toomey challenges, now Toomey Labs, and have all our ideas implemented together with you, the partners, and the Toomey network and transport community. So over to Marvin again.
Thank you, Lena. So to all of you, I think we can see that time really flies, and we are almost coming to the end of this event. Unfortunately, but with many new launches, of course, and also new collaboration potentials, one thing remains always the same, and that is Toomey, first and foremost, stands for and also lives with the Toomey community. And that's why all you hear and see from Toomey is really a great team effort, and of course, also a collective movement for sustainable mobility. And without your effort, I just want to mention that to all the audience, to the partners, to the team in the studio, without the effort, dear transport community and partners, this would all not be possible. So thanks very much.
So yeah, thank you. And we are looking at what we've heard today, and that this is the time to get back to Esther for a second, to have a look at what she's been producing so far.
Great. So I shall walk you through the images?
Yeah, just give us a brief idea of what you've been collecting for us now.
Well, I'll go backwards and start with Toomey's Way Forward. So I just focused on different topics. And can we see the images? Oh, there they are. Perfect.
Wonderful.
Yeah. So we've got the electric mobility down there, Women Mobilize Women. And moving backwards to the strategic outlook, we've got the 5-year plan, and that the BMZ was talking about. And what really inspired me actually at the end was talking about public transport being really the backbone to decarbonizing mobility in the future. And then we've also got the looking back at 5 years at Toomey that we saw at the beginning. And yeah, I'm sure your guests will have another opportunity to look at the images later on. So
thank you very much. Definitely. We'll make sure we'll share those images and these illustrations on our social media afterwards. So this event will be recapturable. And now I think, Marvin?
Thanks a lot also, Esther, from my side. Very impressive and a very great summary of the event. I think now it's a perfect time to really celebrate this event because it is a celebration, and I would now ask the Toomey team to join us here live on the stage, on the studio stage in Berlin. Please come forward.
Wow.
And don't forget the cake as well.
Oh.
There it is. Looking really great. And to all of our partners, a big thank you for making this event such a success. And we really look forward to the next 5 years coming up with Toomey. And we hope really to continue pushing for the sustainable transformation of urban transport. Thanks to all of you, and see you soon. Bye-bye.